Good day, coach, and good day, classmates. So today's video, we will discuss about the task number 6 and task number 7. So before anything else, let me introduce myself first. So I am Arsima A. Ababon from Mondibitulet Industrial Art. So my role in this video is to give an introduction to task number 6 and explaining or discussing the task number 7. So the task number 6, which is the identify the 14 learner-centered psychological principles. So the Brainy Badgers or my members are discussing the task number 6, which is that identify the 14 learner-centered psychological principles. So the 14 principles are divided or classified into 4 main categories, just as number 1, metacognitive and cognitive factors. Number 2, motivational and affective factors. Number 3, developmental and social factors. And lastly, which is the number 4, individual differences factors. So, these 4 main categories, there are different types of principles. So the first presenter or person who explaining or discussing the number 1 main categories, which is Lisa May Soto, to discuss the metacognitive and cognitive factors and their principles. So Lisa May Soto, it's your turn to discuss the metacognitive and cognitive factors.
Thank you, Ms. Arsina Ababon. A pleasant day again, teachers and classmates. I am Lisa May Soto from 1D Bitulet Region Martial Arts. So now, I will discuss the cognitive and metacognitive factors and its 6 principles. The difference between cognitive and metacognitive processes are basically cognitive deals with mental processes such as memory, learning, problem solving, attention, and decision making. However, the metacognitive deals with an individual's higher order cognitive processes where a person has active control over his or her cognitive and metacognitive factors has 6 principles, as I've said earlier. The principle number 1, nature of the learning process. The learning complex subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. So, principle number 2, goals of the learning process. The successful learner, over time and with support and instructional guidance, can create meaningful, coherent representation of knowledge. Principle number 3, construction of knowledge. The successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Principle number 4, strategic thinking. The successful learner can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. Number 5, thinking about thinking. Higher order strategies for selecting and monitoring mental operation facilitate creative and critical thinking. Principle number 6, which is the last, context of learning. Learning is influenced by environmental factors, including culture, technology, and instructional practices. So let's go back with principle number 1, nature learning process. Learning is the process by which an individual acquires knowledge, attitudes, and skills that are necessary to meet the demands of life. For example, while touching a burning candle, a child gets burned and he withdraws the fingers. So, when he faces draws his fingers faster. Gradually, he learns to avoid not only the burning candle, but also other burning things. The behavior of an individual is thus changed through experiences. This change in behavior brought about by experiences is commonly known as learning. Goals number 2. Goals of the learning process. The learning goal is the backbone of a lesson and provides the reason for teaching and observing it. Teams usually begin by selecting a subject, concept, theme, or topic in the course they want to study. Goals specify desired forms of student learning, thinking, engagement, and behavior. So now let's proceed with principles number 3. Construction of knowledge. The construction of knowledge is an active process that happens through individual or social engagement. The construction of knowledge happens by building on people's prior knowledge and experience. All learning is built on what the participants already know and bring with them to the training. So the principles number 4. Strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is defined as a mental or thinking process applied an individual in the context of achieving a goal or set a goal in a game or other endeavor. And it can be done individually as well as collaboratively among key people who can positively alter an organization future. So now let's proceed with principles number 5. Thinking about thinking. Metacognition refers to thinking about thinking. It is the ability to think about and regulate one's own thoughts. Now let's proceed with principles number 6. Context of learning. Learning context is defined as the situation in which something is learned or understood, a situation that can impact how something is learned or what is taught. An example of learning context is external learning environment, including the quality of equipment and facilities and the training level of the teacher. That's all for my discussion.
A blessed day everyone, especially to Coach June. I am Almira A. Apal. My role in this video is to discuss about motivational and effective factors. Principle under the motivational and effective factors such as Principle 7, 8, and 9. So what is motivational and effective factors? Motivational and effective factors. Motivational and emotional influence on learning. The rich internal world of thought, belief, goals, and expectation for success or failure can enhance or interfere with the learner's quality of thinking and information of processing. So, principle number 7. Motivational and emotional influence on learning. The rich internal world of thought, belief, goals, and expectation for success and failure can enhance or interfere with the learner's quality of thinking and information processing. Students believe about themselves as learners and the nature of learning have a marked influence on motivation, motivational and emotional factors also influence both the quality of thinking and information processing as well as an individual motivational to learn. Positive emotional, just as curiosity generally enhance motivation and facilitate learning and performance, mild anxiety can also enhance learning and performance by focusing the learner's attention on a particular task. What and how much is learned is influenced by the learner's motivation. Motivation to learn in turn is influenced by the individual's emotional state, belief, interest, and goal, and habits of thinking. Principle number 8. Intrinsic motivation to learn. Intrinsic motivation occurs when students are engaged because of internal reward like a love of learning or interest in a subject. An example of intrinsic motivation is a student learning new vocabulary word because they love to read. Intrinsic motivation, however, is learning because of external factors. Intrinsic motivation to learn. The learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity all contribute to motivation to learn. Principle number 9. Effects of motivation on effort. Acquisition of complex knowledge and skills requires extended learners' effort and guided practice. Without learners' motivation to learn, the willingness to exert this effort is unlikely without coercion. Motivation determines the specific goals toward which people strive, thus its effect the choices students make. Motivation also lead to increased effort and energy. Motivation determines whether a student will pursue a task, even a difficult one, with enthusiasm or a lackluster attitude. All about my discussion. Thank you.
Good day, Coach Jude. I am Christian de los Santos from 1D BTLET IA. My role in this video is to discuss the principles in developmental and social factors. Principle number 10, the developmental influence on learning. As an individual, there are different opportunities and it constraints for learning. Learning is the most effective when differential development within and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account. As an individual, we will experience different prospects as well as limitations in our learning. When teaching, we need to take into account the different forms of development, which includes the physical, cognitive, and social, to ensure that students learn as much as possible. Like for example, the Piaget theory of cognitive development claims that the children are naturally curious and use exploratory to make sense of the world around them. They discover and adapt to the world through exploration. What is unfamiliar to them? Piaget believed that children's cognitive development brings them from lower to higher mental structure. Social influence on learning, which learning is influenced by social interactions, intrapersonal relations, and communications with others. Social influence are any process whereby a person's attitudes, opinions, beliefs, or behaviors are attended or controlled by some form of social communications. The social environment influences learning by creating a language environment and experience environment, which stimulate the mind to grow and systematically reward a child for learning. One reason why people allow social influence to affect their thoughts and behavior is that We often conform to the norms of a group to gain acceptance of each member, and a group conformity enables a sense of cohesion within a society. The developmental and social factors are influence learning by providing a kind environment. It helps to encourage optimal brain development as well as social connections and collaborations. Or in other words, cell affects learning by shaping children's developing neural circuitry, particularly the executive function.
A good day, Coach Jute. I'm Emmy and Francisco from 1D BT-led Industrial Arts. So, my role in this video is to discuss the principle of individuals' differences factor. The first principle is the individual differences in learning. Learners' different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning are a functions of prior experience and heredity. The most common differences of learners are gender, age, intelligence, ability, interest, prior knowledge, learning style, motivation, self-efficacy, and epistemological belief. How do we apply individual differences in learning? Number 1. Differentiate instruction. Number 2. Capitalize on learning styles. Number 3. Incorporate multiple intelligence into curriculum. Number 4. Capitalize on students' interests. Number 5. Involve students in educational goals. Number 6. Use computerized instruction. Number 7. Group students effectively. Number 8. Consider outside placement option. What is the main focus of studying individual differences? Although to study individual differences seems to be to study variance. How are people different? It is also to study central tendency. How well can a person be described in terms of overall within person average? The second principle is the learning and diversity. Learning is the most effective when differences in learners, linguistic, cultural, and social background are taken into account. Learning diversity refers to the infinite variety of life experiences and attributes a child brings to their formal learning at school. All students with diverse learning needs have a right to access a full and engaging education on the same basis as their peers. What is the role of diversity in learning? Studies have shown that having diverse classrooms help develop tolerance and a greater sense of security when in environments with other foreign cultures present. It also helps students learn about other languages and cultures, encouraging them to be interculturally sensitive. Lastly is the principle of standards and assessment. Setting appropriately high and challenging standards and assessing the learner and learning progress, including diagnostic, process, and outcome assessment, are integral parts of the learning process. In an educational setting, standard-based assessment is assessment that relies on the evaluation of students' understanding with respect to agreed-upon standard, also known as outcomes. The standards set the criteria for the successful demonstration of understanding of a concept or skill. In education, the term standard-based refers to the system of instructions, assessment, grading, and academic reporting that are based on students demonstrating understanding or mastery of a knowledge and skill they are expected to learn as they progress through their education.
So thank you so much, guys. So what are the psychological principles of learner-centered learning? So learning-centered is the perspective that couples a focus on individual learners, their heredity, experiences, perspective, backgrounds, talents, interests, capacities, and needs with a focus on learning, the best available knowledge about learning and how it occurs, and about teaching practices that are most. effective in promoting the highest levels of motivation, learning and achievement of all learners. This dual focus then informs and drives educational decision making. Learner-centered is a reflection in practice of the learner-centered psychological principles in the program, practices, policies, and people that support learning for all. The importance of learner-centered psychological principles is learner-centered psychological principles provide a framework for developing and incorporating the components of new designs for schooling. These principles emphasize the active and reflective natures of learning and learners. Why it is important to understand the principle of learner-centered learning. So in summary, learner-centered education helps the students develop skills that will better equip them for their professional careers. Teachers can be trained in this approach so they can apply the principles and provide their students with a better learning experiences. What is student-centered learning? Why it is important to you? As a student, student-centered learning environment used to pedagogy to facilitate student-empowered learning, helping students learn how to set and achieve their personal educational goals, giving students enough room to fail and learn from their missteps, helping students develop their critical thinking and self-reflection skills. So that's all for today's videos. So thank you.